James for our live from Pasadena Media Studios. Get ready for more piercing and provocative. The Conversation Live starts now. And welcome to another episode of The Conversation Live. The Conversation Live focuses on social justice, restorative justice, inclusion, and equality. Coming up today, Mayor-elect Victor Gordo, as well as District Attorney-elect George Gascon are in the seat. We're going to have a critical and possibly uncomfortable conversation. I want to unpack both Mayor Gordo's election as well as the District Attorney's election. But first, let's welcome Victor into the seat, and we'll talk a little bit about what's happening in Pasadena. Victor, how you doing?
Doing well, James. How are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you for finding some time today. And let me correct myself, Mayor-elect Victor Gordo. How's that sound?
It sounds great. It's just a tremendous honor and a privilege to have earned the vote of the people of Pasadena, and more importantly, the confidence that vote represents. I'm honored, I'm privileged, and I'm ready to get to work.
Yeah, well, we're certainly ready to get to work with you. And as I said, I wanted to have you on today, not to do a deep dive into policy and, what things may look like, but, first, again, to congratulate you, and really just as a guy that grew up here in Pasadena, did you ever think that you would ascend to the office of mayor?
I can't say I ever imagined it. In fact, I recall when I ran for city council the first time, people said to me, well, this will be the end of the line for your political career because you won't be elected mayor in Pasadena. People in Pasadena won't vote for you because of your background. People in some parts of the city, they said, would not support an immigrant from Mexico, and I rejected that and have worked hard for everyone in Pasadena and will continue to do so. And I think this election proves that the people of Pasadena can be fair, are open, and frankly, I just can't say enough about the people of this great city.
What do you think changed people's minds, if there were minds to be changed? I mean, coming from that premise that they would never, Pasadena would never accept you. What did you see during this election cycle, your campaign, that, pretty by a sizable margin, you've been the favorite in the primaries as well as, once we got to the general election? What changed?
I think, one, I don't think that was ever the case. I think it was the comments that were made to me 20 or so years ago reflected a political divide, a view that, there was such a political divide in the city of Pasadena that it couldn't be bridged. I think what changed is that the people of Pasadena proved skeptics different. What changed is that the people of Pasadena proved in this election that what they really care about is dedication to our city, hard work ethic, a willingness to address difficult issues, a willingness to build consensus, and an openness to working with everyone in the city. So I don't think anything changed other than we see that what was said to me was untrue then and untrue today. The people of Pasadena care about what I care about, what you care about, that we have a city and leadership in the city that is willing to build consensus and work towards the benefit of all.
So let's talk about the night of November 3rd, when polls had closed at 8 p.m. and you're I imagine anxious. I don't know if you were nervous, but, certainly anticipating, what could have been a night of defeat. The power of the incumbent is strong, but in three races we see here in Pasadena, the district attorney's office and certainly in the presidential election, although it's yet to be completely decided. But the incumbent typically has the advantage. So while you were with family and friends, kind of watching numbers come in, what was that feeling like, and what were you thinking?
Sure. I mean, we first off, we felt good about our position going into the election and into election night. We'd had a great response from voters. I personally talked to thousands of voters, um, and we had hundreds of volunteers giving us great feedback. And so while we felt good, we certainly were not overconfident. And sure, it is uh, nerve wracking to know that it's all culminating in one vote, and by the end of the night, you will have achieved a goal together with friends and neighbors and family, or the voters will have said, we have something else in mind, and you have to be prepared to accept that. I've learned over time that it's not easy to put your name on a ballot and then ask people to support you, to vote for you, to believe in your campaign, and to believe in those around you. And the voters responded well, and said they believe in not just in me and my campaign and my family and what I hope to accomplish together with my colleagues on the city council, but they believed in the people who were supporting me as well, people from all parts of the city, neighborhood leaders, and they saw that this was a true community effort. But it was very, very nerve-wracking. I mean, I wouldn't be telling you the truth as I said anything but that. And it should be. No one should go into an election night believing, they got this.
Well, I mean,
Everyone should have a question in their mind.
you had a unique position in that if you weren't successful, you still were able to hold your council seat.
Yes.
Um, and so not much would have shifted, in terms of the council. Whereas, Mayor Tornick had, it was win or go home basically. And, he lost. Um, what was the concession like? I mean, did Mayor Tornick reach out to you? Did he share any words of encouragement and congratulations? What was that process like?
Well, we've not had a direct conversation. Mayor Tornick has texted me and called, and we'll be talking in the next couple of days. Um, uh, is my hope about a transition. I know that Mayor Tornick cares about this city, about the city council, and you watched us work together even during the campaign on issues important to the city, and at city council and elsewhere. But campaigns, are important. It's important for candidates to make their views known, to distinguish themselves. And Mayor Tornick did that, and I believe I did that. But now it's time for us to work together to have a smooth transition, and work together to ensure that during and after the transition period, our city is well represented and working well as a city council and as a local government.
Well, when we think about transitions, because possibly the audience may not understand, or we see what's happening in the presidential election. So we see this changeover. How strenuous, or is it a rather easy process going from one mayor to the other?
Well, I think there'll be a difference in style and approach. There'll be certainly appointments will need to be made, and it's not an executive position,
Right.
but certainly there's a difference in terms of governance style and governance approach, priorities. The mayor is responsible for setting the agenda, and I will ensure that all of my colleagues on the city council have have their views respected, and that they all have input in terms of setting the agenda. I think that's, while it is a primary responsibility and role of the mayor of Pasadena to set the agenda for city council meetings and thereby prioritize the work of the city staff, I intend to share that responsibility with my colleagues. I think it's important to have their input, every one of my colleagues, in terms of where we should be headed as a city, as it relates to agenda setting and prioritizing the work of our staff.
Okay. We have just a couple of more minutes. I know you have a finance meeting that you have to get to. Our city has some financial challenges because of COVID, so we need all of your attention in that space. The council will have to appoint a replacement for your seat. Do you have any idea who you'd like to see as that person?
I've received a number of telephone calls from people who are expressing an interest in wanting to talk about the process and also possibly being considered for appointment. I look forward to talking with those individuals, all of them, and asking some of my constituents to do the same. And then I look forward to the interview process at City Council. I'm going to listen very carefully to anyone and everyone who decides to throw their hat in the ring. It's a challenge to serve on the City Council. It's a heck of a time commitment, but most importantly, I want to look for someone who cares about the people that they represent, who cares about our city and the people of our city, who wants to do the right thing for all of the people in our city, and someone who's willing to work hard towards that goal and work collaboratively with members of the City Council, because each member's one vote and 5 votes are required to accomplish anything.
Right. And just so the audience understands, you don't make that appointment. That's a council decision, correct?
That's correct. The decision by charter is a decision of the City Council. Okay.
Mayor-elect Victor Gordo, thank you so much for stopping by. After you get inaugurated, definitely got to have you back on. I want to do a deep dive and know what your first 100 days will look like in office. I told you today was a softball. We weren't going to get into policy, a little bit more of a reprieve, but you know that we will be there to support you. We will also be there to hold you to account. And so we want to make sure that you continue the work that you're doing, and we want to support you and give you the best chances that you have as the leadership of the city to move us forward. Again, thanks again, Victor.
Thank you, James.
All right. You're watching The Conversation Live. The Conversation Live focuses on social justice, restorative justice, inclusion, and equality. Coming up next, District Attorney-elect George Gascon is in the seat. We're going to unpack his election and how he unseated Jackie Lacey.
LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey conceded today, clearing a path for new leadership of the nation's largest team of prosecutors. NBC4's Beverly White has more on the newly elected DA, George Gascon.
On election night, former San Francisco District Attorney George Gascon talked about his runoff with LA DA Jackie Lacey.
We also have justice on the ballot. We have decency on the ballot. We have compassion and redemption on the ballot.
Today, Jackie Lacey conceded to George Gascon.
While I may close the gap between the two of us, I will not be able to make up enough based on the trending of the ballots to win this election.
Tonight, George Gascon confirmed Jackie Lacey gave him a call.
She was very gracious. I saw the press conference. I totally feel for her. I know she's given, her life to the office.
Jackie Lacey, the two-term incumbent, was endorsed by unions for police, probation supervisors, and deputy DAs, plus 4 out of 5 county supervisors. And still, it wasn't enough to overcome demands for criminal justice reform. Demands made at numerous anti-Jackie Lacey protests by Black Lives Matter LA, activists with whom Gascon has met.
Their message is a message that has to be heard.
Gascon is also a former LAPD assistant chief. Current Chief Michael Moore made this statement tonight. Congratulations to DA-elect George Gascon and welcome back home. I'm committed to working with him and his leadership team in the pursuit of justice, including the path of continued reforms. I also want to thank outgoing DA Jackie Lacey on her many years of public service. Meanwhile, George Gascon aims to help shape change on the national stage should his Bay Area friend Senator Kamala Harris and former Vice President Joe Biden ascend to the White House.
I look forward to working both with Vice President Harris and President Biden in whatever capacity we can. You know, the really criminal justice reform is not just a local issue.
In Los Angeles, Beverly White, NBC4 News.
And welcome back. District Attorney-elect George Gascon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, James. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we were talking just before we came on air. It doesn't seem like that long ago that we were talking, and you know, I was trying to better understand your platform and your candidacy, and you know, what was so infectious about you that people wanted to actually you know, throw out the incumbent, so to speak, and welcome in a new district attorney. What was that feeling like when you start looking at those numbers and you realize that this thing could actually happen?
You know, we always thought that it could happen. You know, we really tried to be very very data driven in the approach from the primaries all the way through the general. But of course, you know, you can have all the data in the world and nothing really happens until it happens. And obviously, I'm very honored, not only by the win, but frankly, by a very large win, right? This was not a squeaker, you know, there's at least 8 points different. And I think the voters in LA County spoke very loud and clear. They want to go into a different direction, and we offered a different direction.
What made your platform so different, or your promises so different than Lacey's?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. By the way, it's not an issue of promise, and I know that's you know, but this is really my contract with the public. So there were several things that we said very early on, and I'm very committed. And in fact, we've already moved forward in our transition. We would end the death penalty. We would stop prosecuting children as adults. We are going to ensure that law enforcement and prosecutors are held accountable to the same standard that we hold anybody else in the county accountable. We're going to work at reducing the impacts of mass incarceration in this county and beyond. And I think those were things that very clearly resonated with the public in LA County. And we've seen, by the way, the electorate in the state made some really clear statements here. Not only did I get elected by a wide margin, but when you think about it, Proposition 20, which was something that was sponsored by police and prosecutors and prison guards, that would have sort of taken us back to the pre-reform days. And then Measure J in LA County that is kind of moving us forward. And they both, you know, 20 failed by a large margin and Measure J passed by a large margin, which really said, you know, voters around the state, but in LA County said, not only don't we want to go back to the past, but we actually want to move into a different future.
Right. You know, in the opening, we discussed, you know, your relationship with now Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and your relationship with President-elect Joe Biden. How do you see that relationship intersecting in terms of pushing the agenda forward for police reform and some measurable, you know, or uniformity across the nation?
Look, I think it's going to be huge, right? I mean, first of all, I think that the Justice Department, U.S. Justice Department, can play a leadership role in bringing reform and uniformity across the nation through their granting process, you know, how they fund different programs, the leadership that, you know, hopefully not hopefully, I know that we're going to get from whoever, you know, President Biden and Vice President Harris appoint in the Justice Department. You know, Vice President Harris has a wealth of knowledge in this space, and she's going to be an incredible partner, not only for me, but prosecutors around the country. So I'm very excited. You know, for the last 9 years, well, half of my term as a DA in San Francisco, I was fighting the administration, right? As soon as President Obama left in 2016, we had to fight for grants, and, you know, they took money away from us, and we were fighting them on immigration. It's going to be really refreshing, actually, to have a partner in DC.
That's awesome. This past Monday, you kept a promise that you spoke of, while you were campaigning it. You would meet with members of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, as well as some families of brothers and sisters who have lost their lives to law enforcement. Let's take a look at that event, and then we'll talk about that on the other side. Jared, let's roll in this next clip.
All right, LA County's incoming district attorney made good on a major campaign promise last night. George Gascon held a meeting with Black Lives Matter, including families of people who have been killed by police officers. He says he called the meeting in South LA to assure the community that he will fully investigate allegations of abuse of power by police, and he wants to have a strong relationship with the Black and Latino communities.
Well, I think it's really important that we get him on record saying that he is going to follow through with his promise to reopen cases, to re-examine cases that have not been determined, and really say, that he's going to prosecute police who kill and abuse and brutalize our people.
My intention as a district attorney is a very open office. We're going to involve the community in all of our work, and this is the beginning of that process.
Members of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles say they tried unsuccessfully for years to get outgoing DA Jackie Lacey to meet with them.
George, what did you learn Monday night?
Well, look, first of all, as you indicated, I made that commitment. And by the way, the commitment is not only to have one meeting, but the commitment is to have a continuous dialogue and to bring members of the community, including BLM-LA, into the office and work together for reform. But, for my wife and I, and by the way, my wife was there as well, because this is something that we view as a family enterprise, and we wanted to be there. We wanted to feel the pain. We wanted to feel the suffering that these families have endured, because I think that it's important as someone in my role to understand not only from a clinical look at cases on the law, what the cases may or may not have, but also to be able to share and be at a space where people are sharing their pain. And for that was very important for me as a human being.
Yeah, you talked about reopening cases. You also talked about setting up almost like a special team of attorneys to actually look into when there's a use of force involving police. Let's first talk about the opening of cases. What does that process look like? Have you identified any specific ones that you can share with us?
Right. Yeah, so we've identified 4 cases that we've already made public, and this was a very painstaking process where we had a retired judge, we had a former senior prosecutor from the Obama administration's Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and other local lawyers. And we looked at a number of cases. We looked at several dozen cases that on face value, they appeared to have some important questions. We have already identified 4 of those cases that we are going to reopen as soon as as soon as I'm sworn in. And if appropriate, one of my pledges was that I would appoint the special prosecutor to move forward with any of those cases. And again, I want to make it clear, if appropriate, but we're definitely have a lot of questions about some of those cases, and this is not the end of the process. There are other cases, including some of the more recent cases that we're also looking. So this is going to be, it's going to be a continuous journey. I think it's also important for the community and the police to know that when the police is using force lawfully, that they're going to be protected and they're going to be supported. Right? This is not just go out and get a prosecution because we can. This is looking at good police work and supporting that, and looking at the potential for criminal behavior by police and holding people accountable, just like we would anybody else in the community, by the way.
Yeah, I can think of one speaker on Monday night who spoke very passionately about donating to your campaign. And that being her first time really engaging in the system like that.
Yeah.
So, again, you talk about a commitment, you talk about a promise. They made it very clear to you on Monday night that they're there to support you. The community is there to support you. They're also there to hold you to account. So
sure.
we're hard up on time. Like I said, I wanted to just again congratulate you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for making yourself available. This certainly won't be the last time we have an opportunity to talk.
Yep.
But I guess I should have known when you said you were a Dodger fan that you had something special. Even though you spent a lot of time up in San Francisco, so hum baby, all right.
Absolutely. And James, thank you, and look forward to being a regular guest in your show.
Absolutely, and hopefully it's not all doom and gloom, and
No.
and we're really looking at, but we got to have you come out to Pasadena once the COVID lifts,
Absolutely.
and talk with our community and let them get better introduced to you. Again,
Absolutely.
my guest today is District Attorney-elect George-Gascon, and we've had a conversation about his candidacy and unpacking this election. Until we have another opportunity to speak with you, as always, agape.